We're back for Your Ears Only. I'm Mark Garber.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. We'll do anything that's going to make our safety processes and procedures even better. That was Centers for Disease Control and Prevention spokesman Tom Skinner after a second investigation into a recent anthrax incident revealed additional safety concerns, including the use of expired disinfectants and the transfer of dangerous germs in ordinary Ziploc bags. Now this.
I don't understand this president. The crisis on the border, he did the fundraisers in New York while there are major conflicts, what we used to call in the military AWOL.
Hi, this is Hilda Solis calling, just calling you off the record here. Wanted to ask you if you could help us get folks organized to come to a fundraiser that we're doing for Organizing for America's for Obama campaign on Friday.
President Obama was under attack again last week on issues both foreign and domestic. Republican Senator John McCain charged a lack of leadership in behalf of Israel and the Kiev government of Ukraine as tragedy unfolded in both places. And a recording of former Labor Secretary Hilda Solis suggested improper political activity that fed complaints of a White House that considered itself above the law, both in campaign mode and executive actions, meant to bypass an intransigent GOP-controlled House of Representatives.
To consider those and other key Washington developments last week for Your Ears Only, we're joined again by Eleanor Clift, veteran TV commentator and contributor at thedailybeast.com. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be with you.
Beyond the new sanctions on Russia that Obama announced, do you see him escalating military support in Ukraine, Syria, or Iraq in response to complaints about his leadership?
I think if he does escalate support, I don't think it's going to be in response to complaints about his leadership. He's going to do a careful assessment, as he always does, to see if the U.S. wants to weigh in more on the side of the Ukraine government. I think they're going to let the investigation over the downflight play out a little while before he makes that decision. I think they've been upping some support to the Syrian rebels, but I think the fact that this surface-to-air missile may have been in the hands of Russian separatists is a kind of a warning that when you arm these groups, you may be inviting more problems as opposed to solving problems. And I think the Iraq situation, he sent his advisors. I don't see that escalating. So overall, the answer to your question is no, I don't see any major response here, especially to calls from Republicans and some Democrats that he's not being tough enough. That's not this president's style of leadership.
How serious do you see the Hilda Solis recording made before she resigned from the cabinet and the GOP calls for more investigation of alleged administration impropriety? Congressional Republicans have already moved to cut the pension of former IRS official Lois Lerner, who's refused to testify about the conservatives' complaints of IRS probing conservative and liberal groups seeking tax-deductible status.
Well, you seem to be linking Solis's resignation to that recording. I don't think one had anything to do with the other. I think she was, done at the end of the president's first term. She's not in the cabinet any longer. I think that if you start looking, you're going to find probably plenty of examples on the staffs of congressmen and on the staffs of the executive where the line between governing and politicking is blurred and violates the Hatch Act, which was passed in 1939. So I don't see this as a serious violation, especially since she's not in office anymore.
Well, Eleanor, what are the prospects for House Speaker John Boehner's threatened lawsuit against the president over his delay of a mandate under Obamacare, which so many Republicans would still like to kill?
The weight of legal opinion seems to be that he really doesn't have standing to bring this lawsuit, and it's likely to be tossed out. But he is saying that he's going to bring it to the floor of the House. The Speaker would prefer not to go down the impeachment route, and this is kind of an alternative to impeachment. I mean, nobody thinks there are grounds for impeachment, and if the Republican House actually did that, that could well really backfire and help the Democrats.
Many see Republicans' response to the border flood of immigrant children as a mobilizing issue for Democrats, especially with Hispanic voters. But you talked with some experts last week who think it might not be such a sure thing. What's their analysis?
The president's sort of really muddled response has really angered Hispanics. And Hispanics may be alienated from the Republican Party, but they're very disappointed in this president. And Obama does seem likely to work some sort of compromise with the Republicans in order to get some additional funds. He may agree to send National Guard troops to the border, or he may agree to some change in that 2008 law, which requires authorities to treat children from Central America more as refugees and not to immediately deport them. And the president is seeking some additional authority where he can return some of these children faster, and that doesn't sit well with the Hispanic community either. So I think the president has probably squandered whatever advantage the Democrats had with the Hispanic community, although they're still looking. He's promised some executive orders that might bring some reforms by the end of the summer.
Eleanor, Hillary Clinton's early gaffes promoting her new memoir have some analysts comparing her with Mitt Romney as appearing too 1%, and maybe too outspoken about looking forward to grandmotherhood. Any real question about her inevitability at this point?
Well, I think nothing is guaranteed in politics, but it sure looks like she's going to run. And while you do have some, restive liberals who would, prefer Elizabeth Warren, I think that Hillary Clinton's likelihood of running is like 90% compared to maybe 2% for Elizabeth Warren. And in terms of electability, when you have all these concerns about President Obama being too young and inexperienced and never having managed anything, Elizabeth Warren is she's older than Barack Obama was when he was elected, but she's never really managed anything, and she's a one-term senator. So I don't know that the country would necessarily turn to her, but liberals definitely see her as their champion, and I think Hillary Clinton must be paying close attention because she's got to develop an economic message that goes beyond the Wall Street folks that she represented when she was in the Senate. And she's really got to speak to a middle class that feels like it's been left behind, and she's got to address the issue that Elizabeth Warren does constantly, that the big banks are getting away with what they always did, and they haven't been brought to heel. And there's a lot of resentment in the country about the way the banks and the elites were coddled after the meltdown of '08, and the middle class has had to pay the larger price.
Speaking of female leaders, what prospects do you see for Mary Barra, first female head of GM, as Congress rakes through new documents showing just how much company leaders have known about fatal safety defects for years? Does she have to fire more VIPs or just step aside?
Well, she took a beating in the Senate hearing this last week, but I think there was also grudging respect for the way that she held her ground. And she is staunchly supporting her top lawyer. He's been with the company more than 30 years, just as she has been. So maybe there will be more firings, but I don't see anybody calling for her resignation.
Eleanor Clift is a veteran TV commentator and contributor at thedailybeast.com.
Quote from the news, "We want to make sure that we have buy-in." That was a White House official after the presidents of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala were summoned to discuss steps to be taken on both sides of the U.S. border to end the flood of child refugees escaping poverty, violence, and sexual exploitation.
Next, new science of the brain for your ears only.